It's been a long time between drinks for fans of the original HRT, but for us, dreams do come true on the weekend, and Chaz and Lee Holdsworth dominated Bathurst. It's about 1,000,000 degrees sat here in the house with this jacket on, but it's been a long time since I could wear this one with pride. Finally, if you've been a fan of the team from Clayton for a long time, it's been a while, but you know, this weekend went very well for us, and it's been. I can't think of a time in the supercar era just where someone was just leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else come race day. It had that kind of shades of 1991, 92, where the GTR was just, and where they had the lead GTR as well, where would just go and smash everyone. It's not even like the two team cars were going for it, or, there were, like last year, there were kind of, Shane VanGisbergen and Cam Waters were a little bit above everyone else. This was just, that car was an absolute rocket ship. I thought it was going to be... My tips weren't bad, but I would have never expected them to be that far ahead just basically all weekend. I had to jettison the jacket because it's just far too hot in here. So let's start from the start. The two Erebus cars were kicked out of the top 10 shootout because they had underweight doors. The cars weren't underweight overall, but there is minimum weights that items can be on the car, basically so people don't, spend a heap of money making all these lightweight parts and then make a really heavy muffler, say, to get the centre of gravity down on the cars. So their doors were not the correct weight. A lot of comments online like, it's only a little thing, don't kick them out. It's only Erebus. They're kind of, cute and cuddly. Let them go. If this was Triple Eight, it would have been, they're cheats, rah, rah, kick them out. Rah, and, people are still going on about Scott McLaughlin's engine, being tiny. You can't have it both ways, people. Either the rules are the rules or, it's open slather. Yeah, minor infringement, but they didn't meet the rules, so they're out. At least they only went to the back of the top 10. That did move Shane VanGisbergen closer to the front, which I thought, well, that's good. Then he's in. But yeah, Lee Holdsworth was second fastest in the morning warm up. Broc Feeney was fastest, but They were just at the front at every session. You watch the start of the race. They cleared. Lee cleared. I'm trying to think of Tony D'Alberto. Sorry, Tony. Your efforts yesterday were forgettable. Tony got a great start. Lee cleared him before the end of lap one, and was off and gone. Had it not been for that tyre failure or the delamination, they wouldn't have been kind of headed all day. And even when you were looking through it, because they were off sequence, you're like, they've got enough pace if everything kind of continues the way it was, because for a long time it looked like we weren't going to have any safety cars, or after that Randall's indiscretion early on. You're like, they're going to gap, like they're going to have enough of a gap to be able to do a pit stop and come back out in front, or, they've got the pace to take that back. So it kind of wasn't too much of a concern. They were just that much faster and they could just do it lap after lap after lap. Now, I think the easiest way to kind of cover off everything in the race, I'm going to run in reverse order and just comment a little bit about each car in the field. Just a couple of general comments for the race overall, though. I was surprised how early a lot of them got rid of the co-driver laps. I think Dale Wood was probably the earliest, and it was about lap 80. He was over and out. fair enough, whatever. But that meant that Nick Percat then has to do the last 80 laps by himself. Big ask there. That was where like Lee and Chaz really had it. Like both of them could bang out those laps, no problem. And Lee actually stayed in a bit longer. I think he ended up doing nearly 70 laps, which granted, because they have to do 56, the code, or was it 54? One or the other around there. But Lee did, nearly a whole extra stint where most of them kind of get the co-driver out as quick as possible. But Lee probably could have even ran with, say, Shane VanGisbergen because the way that car was going. The other one was the guys very, very early. A lot of people were doing brakes and seemed to be throwing brakes at it a lot. Now, the idea of having the pad and rotor change and that was so that people don't go spend mega dollars making brakes that last the whole race, but it seems a little bit counterintuitive if then you're throwing brakes at it all day. Your cost would be going up a lot, I would have thought, on that. Just something that we didn't see, and then it's kind of crept in because of that rule. Obviously, people are changing the brakes because they have to, and now it seems to be a thing, like the changing brakes a few times during the day. So we'll run through the field and a little bit of a comment on each car. In last place, we had Scott Pye and Jimmy Goulding. Team 18 curse strikes again. Power steering on lap 2, and I don't even remember if they got back. I think they went back out for a couple more laps. It's still the same problem, and then parked it and day done. At least I don't think anything really went wrong with the sister car, but we'll get to that. Goddard and Jaden Ojeda. Jaden Ojeda once again put it in the wall at Bathurst. Seems to be good at doing that. They weren't really a factor or anything. They were running towards the back all day. Anton De Pasquale and Tony D'Alberto. The DJR cars, once they didn't really have pace again. And their car, they broke down on lap 129, didn't get back to the pits. They were done, but they weren't. They were kind of in that mid top 10, but they were never troubling the fastest guys all day. Feeney and Ingall. Feeney ended up putting it on the wall at Reed Park towards the end of the race. They were going reasonably well. Ingall did drop back in his stint. Feeney was looking pretty good. He passed Craig Lowndes in the first stint, plus a couple of other guys, but I thought it was, kind of like a handing over of the guard kind of thing, him passing Craig during that stint, and you actually thought, would Jamie have been better off having, Broc in the car this year as his co-driver? And has Lowndes kind of hit that co-driver cliff where he's starting to, because, Ingall, but Lowndes was the slower out of the Triple Eight co-drivers all weekend. Then we had Will Brown and Jack Perkins. They had power steering failure as well. Seems to be a lot of power steering failures going on. They lost a heap of laps and weren't really a factor. Fabian Coulthard and Jonathon Webb, they ran really well at the start of the race. Jono Webb was doing some good things. They had a jack fail in one of the pit stops, which put them behind. And with Jack Perkins and Will Brown, they seemed to be, every time the safety car came out, they got to pass through the field and get laps back. And what a weird rule that one is. But anyway. Jaime and Matt Campbell, they had a window fall out of the car. Yeah, that's just another one. They didn't really show much pace during the day. Shane VanGisbergen and Garth Tander, they ended up finishing 18th. They were dead on for finishing second until they had the tyre delaminate towards the end of the race. It was a shame because they had done really well up to that point. They were, if it wasn't for 25 just being so much faster than everyone, they were the leading car, really. Then they got beaten by Jack Smith and David Wall. I recall seeing the car on TV a few times, but that's about it. Winterbottom and Michael Caruso. Again, I recall seeing that. I don't know what. They weren't really there, were they? 15th, Jack LeBroq and Zach Best. Zach had a really good first stint. They were, I think they were possibly even the leading Tickford car at one point because Moffat had a really, really crappy first stint. And then they just kind of went missing. I'm not sure what went wrong. Zach Best, Rookie of the Year. He didn't put a foot wrong or anything, not that I know of. But they did have an interview with him after his first stint, and I don't think I've seen an interview with him all year, but maybe it was nerves, but the personality just, it's just very, very flat. Sorry, that was just my impression that I got. Yeah. Gary Jacobs and Dylan O'Keefe. If it wasn't for the foot cam, another one that were they in the race? Kosteki's, they found the wall. They weren't a factor. 12th place, Jones and Chris Pither. They didn't crash. Yeah, it's all. 11th, Reynolds and Goulding. They actually led the race because they didn't pit when everyone else did under the safety car. But there was just no pace in that car really all day. Should have done better. In 10th place, the lead DJR car. What did I say? But they just no pace. They had to double stack. They had a rejoin penalty because one of them crashed into, I think it was Jamie Whincup at the time in the car as they come out of the pits. They weren't threatening at all. They were running in that kind of mid to back half of the top 10 all day. Slade Tim Blanchard in 9th. It's kind of a good result for that team, but also there could have been so much more. I'm not sure if it was just that Blanchard went kind of backwards in his stints, but they're another one that kind of went missing during the day. Hazelwood and Fiore, again, were they even in the race? Nothing to report. They just kind of plodded along and, ended up 8th. Not a bad result, but yeah. 7th. This shows with some of the other guys that went missing. Courtney and Randall. Now, Randall beached it early in the race. I think they went like 2 laps down, but then with this safety car thing, they got laps back and, they ended up 7th. So that shows you with some of the other guys who we didn't even see them on TV. So obviously they didn't, bury it in a sand trap or anything, but what kind of day they had. And then also where could those guys have ended up if they'd had a good day at it without, Randall, not something we would have expected from Randall. It was just really a rookie error, and he's not a rookie anymore. 6th, my smoky for the race, Perkat and Wood. They never had front-running pace, but they were always just kind of around that, 5th to 7th, kind of in the I think probably it hurt a bit. Dale having his knee injury, and I think that's probably why they really did get the laps out of the way for him early, and then Perkat doing 80 laps, on his lonesome at the end, which you get tired doing that. It's a long time behind the wheel. In 5th, it's not a podium, but still considering Forward and Luff. Warren Luff's done it again. I don't understand, and he was once again one of the fastest of the co-drivers. It looked like maybe they should have swapped him over and seen what happened. Every year it happens. So 4th, Whincup and Lowndes. They were thereabouts all day. They did have to double stack, but didn't hurt them as much as, say, the DJR double stacking. They weren't quite there all day. 3rd position, the Erebus. I was expecting this from Brodie Kosteki. Dave Russell. really, really, really good job. Sorry, I did. I didn't expect it. It just did a really solid job. Dave Russell, I very much underestimated you before the race. Very, very well done, boys. In second, Cam Waters, Moffat. That first stint, it wasn't a good start. He went nowhere. But then his other stints, and I'm wondering whether we should, the level of the co-drivers, but the pressure that's put on with them at the start, would it have really hurt their day if they put Cam in for that first stint? And even if you run to, say, lap 20 and then you chuck Moff in, doesn't matter, because then you end up like with Lee Holdsworth where, maybe they're getting out at like lap 110, 120. You've still got a good 40 laps, 2 stints at the end of the race for the lead driver to go for it. And that could have maybe set them up a bit better. They were never going to beat the lead car though. A second really, really, really solid result. And last but certainly not least, the men of the hour, Chaz Mostert, Lee Holdsworth. Even with the tyre delaminated, that thing was an absolute rocket all day. They were going to make up the time from that tyre failure anyway. It was like back to the old days where you had one of those cars where whatever situation you put it in, they were the fastest. It was nearly like you had 2 main drivers paired up together, and it nearly wasn't a fair race. You saw the interview with Roland Dane where basically he's just saying, we got nothing, like we don't understand. They just domination. Probably the biggest incident during the race for me wasn't one of the accidents that happened. It was actually on one of the restarts getting closer towards the end. Shane was actually leading. Chaz was there in second. Jamie was in third. And you could quite clearly see that Shane was trying to back Chaz into a position that Jamie could get through. This happened at the second turn there. I'm trying to remember exactly how it all went down, but then finally when they did get Jamie through, the commentators started to catch on to it, but you could see, like, he was backing the whole field up. There's a lot of concertina down through the field, a lot of nose and tail kind of banging going on. And this is really, really fraught with danger. I'm not sure what the whole, obviously, because then, Jamie could hold Chaz up. But it was only ever going to be a band-aid approach, because at some point Chaz was going to get through and, mow them down. And I just thought it wasn't really a fair move, I didn't think. And I thought, maybe a little bit of, justice kind of when, Shane did have the tyre trouble. Them's the brakes a little bit. And then also the way he was driving back to the pits, who knows how Brodie hung on to that when he went around at the outside at the grate there. Just that was a deep breath moment there. It's just like, this is going in the wall. The other little thing I wanted to cover off, I did see a post from Peter Adderton. He was complaining that there was little coverage for the Super Cheap Auto wildcard for some reason. Not sure why he was complaining about that. I would have been more complaining that they did. Then when I saw that post and then I started kind of looking at the coverage a bit, and I thought there wasn't a lot of coverage really for the Brodie Kosteki car. There seemed to be a bit more for the Courtney car, but anyway. I thought it was strange that he complaining about the coverage of that, which there did seem to be a fair bit of coverage of that car, especially when he crashed into the wall. And he was complaining that there was a lot of coverage of, the 25, which had obviously sponsored by Optus, one of Boost's competitors, but he was complaining that there wasn't coverage of a car that he wasn't sponsoring. Anyway, and I thought, well, maybe if your car was, blazing out in front of the race, maybe there would be a lot of coverage of that one. I didn't. Normally, his complaints and that, you can see where they're coming from, and a lot of the time they do make sense. It confused me. Now, the big question on everybody's lips, who won the tipping competition? It was close. I did have 2 entries that had the first 2 positions right. The third position came down to one had Shane VanGisbergen and one had Jamie Whincup. So, because unfortunately Shane had his tyre troubles, earn 3 LOL. You are the winner. Get in contact. Send me an email with your address and your choice of mug. I should have grabbed one to do the video, but tell me if you want that Ambrose, Scaife, Murphy or Jimmy Richards. Let me know. And Bathurst has been run and won for another year. That's it for the season of racing. I will have videos coming up. Next week I plan on doing my yearly grade, everybody. So how did your favourite driver stack up in the rankings there? There'll probably be a little bit of news, and then we'll have a couple of weeks off for Christmas. Enjoy ourselves. But down in the comments, did you enjoy the race as much as me? Have you been a long-suffering, real HRT fan? Could never really accept Triple Eight as HRT. It just wasn't right. And did my support of the team, I don't normally get into this too much on here. I try to stay a bit unbiased, but my support of the team did waver for a bit there after losing the factory backing and Garth Tander getting the chop there. But with Chaz being back there, it's kind of, and obviously Nick Percat next year, quite happy with the driver lineup again. They seem to be headed in the right direction. It's good for the sport having, another team that can run up the front like that. Let me know down in the comments. It was a good weekend. I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.